But first to the deadly clown show in Victoria. Think of a dictator wearing clown shoes, and I think you'll probably get the picture. We're now seeing the terrible price of the Victorian government's catastrophic bungling of its quarantine hotels. 2 Victorians have died over the past 24 hours, one man in his 90s and the second in his 60s. We're not told if the second man had any underlying health issues that might explain his death. But what we do know is that Victoria in the past day recorded 127 new infections. That's its highest total since this virus came to Australia. And the worst thing is the high rate of community transmission, more than half. And result, Victorians have become the lepers of Australia. Banned from South Australia, Western Australia, banned from Queensland, even New South Wales, which was demanding the states drop their border bans, now says, whoops, as of midnight tomorrow, its own borders are now going to be closed to Victorians as well.
Do you feel a little bit silly having to do this now?
Not at all. I think, in fact, all of the cases that the Premier Andrews announced today are from community transmission. This is unprecedented in Australia.
As I said, a dictator in clown shoes. The clown bit is the fact that much of this outbreak occurred because of the disastrous way Victoria ran its quarantine hotels. For some weird reason that this government, very secretive government, refuses to explain, it got amateurs to run the security at those hotels. Not the police, not jail warders, people who experienced following orders, all that kind of stuff, but private security guards, some of whom didn't even turn up to work. Some got too close to guests, got infected, went out and spread it. Incredibly, this government also let travellers leave those quarantine hotels without getting tested. Can you believe that? And when people did get infected from this outbreak, this government did not make absolutely sure they stayed at home in quarantine. Basics. And now look, people dying. Victoria shut off. Australia's economy getting yet another belting that we cannot afford. But now the dictator bit. I've said since April, I admit it, we must do much more to make sure infected people stay in quarantine, even if, as I've often said, you stick police outside their front door. The stakes are too high. And we must guard the vulnerable, the very old, and maintain basic social distancing. But in its latest panic, the government didn't just impose a second lockdown, a crude lockdown of everyone, of more than 300,000 people in a dozen postcodes in Melbourne's north and west. It also sent 500 police without warning to lock down even more severely 9 housing commission towers. An even tougher lockdown with the 3,000 residents banned even from leaving the shop for food or baby supplies. Now, Premier Andrews, he says these people will stay locked up in their apartment for 5 days, but longer if they don't get themselves tested for the virus. That is home imprisonment of people without a trial. It is home imprisonment of people who haven't even committed an offence. And all on the say of one politician, the Premier. Now, this man is not telling us exactly what the problem is that he thinks makes this communist China-style lockdown so necessary. Now, sure, I understand the risk. We've got 3,000 people in these towers packed pretty closely together, sharing some facilities, when at least 5% of them, of those tested anyway, have already caught the virus.
This specific setting has genuinely explosive potential for the spread of this virus.
But here's one thing. These 3,000 people have had their freedom taken away from them until they get a test. But up to this morning, just 400 had been tested. What on earth is the hold-up? Oh, says the government, we were too busy getting them care and supplies. And there's no real problem, it claimed, of people refusing tests. Language issues, yes, but we're overcoming that and blah, 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 blah. But add this to what the Premier has said in earlier press conferences about this wider outbreak, not specific to these towers, people refusing tests and deliberately breaking rules and the bad English. And you wonder if there is, in fact, a multicultural mess here, that if we understood it, if the government just levelled with us, might make this particular lockdown a lot more understandable. I mean, do we actually have some people in these towers, some, who simply will not play by the rules, putting everyone at risk? People including, like, I don't know, one man who was arrested today for allegedly biting a police officer.
We had a 32-year-old male who attempted to leave from one of the towers in Flemington. There was an issue there where that male tried to leave against instructions. A fight occurred where the police were assaulted, and that male bit one of the members, and so he was taken into custody.
So this lockdown of the towers might be justifiable. But this Victorian government, I say it again, is so secretive and so politically correct that we can't really judge that. It's not telling us stuff. And that is making this lockdown seem arbitrary and dictatorial, scarily dictatorial.